Good morning, class. So, after this long break, we're back again. And as you know, I'm Dr. Shaheen Khanum, and I'm going to teach you today about the digestive system. So, it's also called the gastrointestinal tract, right? So, the content, as you can see, that I'll be introducing you the topic, and then we'll discuss the salivary secretion, swallowing, stomach, pancreatic secretion, liver, intestine, and the mechanism of defecation. So, digestion is all about that the food that we have is broken down into smaller absorbable pieces that can be taken by the blood and other substances, and which can be given back to us as nutrients, like whatever minerals and whatever organic inorganic substances are there that are broken down and absorbed by the blood to be used again. So the gastrointestinal tract is a hollow organ which is like a pipe, and it starts with the mouth and ends at the anus, and in between there is the pharynx, the esophagus, which is the food pipe, the stomach, the small and large intestine. These are the primary organs, and they directly work in digestion, absorption, assimilation, and removal of the food particles and the excretory particles present. Then there is secondary organs which help the primary organs, like our teeth and tongue, which help in chewing the food and assimilating the food and making it in a part of a bolus. And then there is a salivary gland which secretes certain digestive juices, which start the digestion in the stomach, in the mouth itself. Then there are liver, pancreas, and gallbladder, which again release certain digestive juices and help as a secondary form. Now, like we can see the picture, we can see the mouth. Then there is the pharynx, which is between the esophagus and the mouth, which is the opening of the esophagus. And then there is the stomach, the large intestine, small intestine, which is the primary, and the secondary is the salivary glands, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, and the teeth. So now talking about the function of the digestive, the ingestion, eating of the food, then propulsion, moving the food, which is like called the peristalsis, wave-like motion. Then the mechanism of mechanical digestion, which happens in the mouth. Then chemical digestion, which happens in the large intestine. Then there is absorption, which again happens in the intestine. And then the excretion at the rectum and anus, through the rectum and anus. So you can see the picture here, at which part what is happening. First, in green you can see there is ingestion, then there is propulsion in the other side, then there is mechanical digestion, then there is chemical digestion in the large and small intestine, and at the same time there is absorption of those particles which can be reused by the blood vessels which is around the intestine, and the remnants which are not required are defecated through the process of defecation. Moving on to the next segment, the walls of the GIT. So the GIT is the hollow organ, and it has various layers within its wall. So the first layer, which is the innermost, is the mucus layer. The second is the submucous layer, which is after that, and then there is a muscular layer, and at the end the outer layer is the serous or fibrous layer. So the mucosa, it is the innermost layer of the GIT, and it comes in contact with the content of the GIT. It has three types of lining: epithelium. Remember the epithelium from the blood vessels, it's the same. So it is at one end of the lining of the GIT, and it has basically two types of cells. One is stratified squamous cell, which is seen above the stomach, that is at the mouth, tongue, pharynx, and the esophagus. They have stratified squamous epithelial cells, and below that in the stomach and large and small intestine there is columnar type of cells. Then after the epithelium there is a lamina propria, which is basically more of connective tissue in the form of basically your WBC, and they have a function of nourishing the epithelium. Okay, and then after that there is a layer of Muscularis mucosa, which is a thin layer, and it is of smooth muscle, and it is just present after the esophagus downward. Okay, and the main function of the mucosa is secretion and absorption of the products of digestion. Coming on to the next layer, which is the submucosa. It is a dense connective tissue, and it's not present in the mouth and the pharynx but only in the esophagus, stomach, intestines. So they consist of loose collagen, elastic fibers, reticular fibers, and blood vessels, lymphatic and lymph nodes. Now, coming to the third layer, which is the muscularis layer, this consists of two types of muscles, both skeletal muscle and smooth muscle. So, the lips consist of your orbiculi oris, your cheeks consist of buccinator, and the wall of the pharynx is again a skeletal muscle. And after that, the esophagus has both smooth and skeletal muscle, but the wall of the stomach and intestines are only smooth muscle fibers. The smooth layer is of quite importance as the movement of the GIT is takes place because of the smooth muscles. So it is arranged in three layers. The innermost layer is the oblique layer, like you can see, and the outer layer is outermost is your longitudinal layer, and in between there is an inner circular layer, and the contraction of these three layers lead to the propulsion of food and moving out from the stomach to the intestine. And the innermost oblique layer is not present in the intestine and esophagus. Coming on to the last type, which is the serous or fibrous layer. It is the outermost protective layer of the GIT, and it directly comes in contact with the peritoneal membrane. It is of two types, fibrous, which is formed by connective tissue, and serous, which is formed by connective tissue and mesoepithelial cells. The fibrous can be seen in the pharynx and the esophagus, and the serous layer can be seen in the stomach and intestines. And it is a continuation of the peritoneal membrane, that is the member lining in the abdominal cavity. As you can see in the picture, there is mucosa, which consists of the epithelium and the lamina propria, and there is the muscularis mucosa with thin layer of muscle, and then there is submucosa, which has mostly WBC present, and then there is muscular propria, which is circular muscle and longitudinal muscle, and when there is sometimes in front of the circular muscle there is oblique muscles, and the end there is a serosa, which is the mesoepithelium, and the serosa is the outermost layer, and it forms the hardest part, and it comes in contact with the peritoneum. To the nerve supply of the GI tract. So basically there are two types. First is the intrinsic and the other is extrinsic. The intrinsic, which is the internal, and extrinsic, which is the external or the ANS. So in the intrinsic, which is also called enteric, it's basically lying in the wall of the GIT, and it is having two types of blood plexus. Plexus means branches. One is myenteric, the other is submucosal. So myenteric is basically which lies in the between the longitudinal and circular layer of the muscular part of the GIT, and it increases the activity. And the submucosal or the Meissner layer, it decreases the activity of the layer of the GIT. Then these are the acetylcholine and other neurotransmitters like dopamine, metencaphalin, and serotonin. These help in exciting or giving exciting stimulus to the GIT, and there are other norepinephrine and all, which inhibit the GIT activity. Then next is coming on to the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, which was the external one. So it has two types. One is a parasympathetic and the other is a sympathetic. So like we know in the GIT, the parasympathetic, it leads to increase in the activity of the GI functions, and that is the secretions increases, and the sympathetic, which is for the fight and flight, it decreases or inhibits the function of the GIT. Thank you for staying till the end, and if you have any problems, please do comment below and let me know. And thank you for bearing with me, as this was my first time in content creating. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.